I might finally have the right challenge for you. Admittedly, it's all been far too easy. So far, we've done just the base level logos quiz, then we did black and white logos, then we did retro logos, and so it's time to do black and white retro logos. There are a couple, it's allergy season. There are a couple of deep cuts, like really deep cuts, in this quiz. So hopefully I've finally come up with something that'll stump you. As always, there are 30 points maximum up for grabs in this quiz, but I think especially with this quiz, like 20 is a good score to aim for. And if this is your first time in one of my quizzes, in one of my logo quizzes, I'll walk you through sort of the scoring system. Especially, we'll use the first question as sort of the tutorial question. So without further ado, I'm going to scooch on over here, make room for the stars of the show, and we'll jump right into the quiz with the first question. As always, don't forget to let me know what score you got in the comments. So, logo number 1, question number 1, hint 1. So, zoomed in portion of a retro sports logo in black and white has appeared next to me. And if you can identify the logo from this picture, you get 3 points. But don't worry, if you can't get it yet, I'll zoom out. You'll get 2 more looks at this logo before I give you the answer. So, if you can identify this logo right now, you get 3 points. Let's move on to hint number 2 and zoom out a little bit. I tend to just get lost in the sauce in these videos, and I'll often say zoom in when I mean zoom out. So my goal for this video is not to make that mistake. Hint number 2. So it's the same logo. If you recognize it from this image, you get 2 points. So you can get a maximum of 3 points per question. So if you had it on 3, you don't get 2 more points here. But this is one of the easier ones, I think, especially for Americans. Hint, hint. Of the quiz, do you recognize this logo? Let's go ahead and look at the entire logo in black and white for 1 point. Do you recognize this logo? He's holding a football. I think that goes without saying. So, you probably got it at this point. I'll give you the answer. This is the New England Patriots logo, retro logo. So now we're all up to speed. Let's go to the second logo. So, what are we looking at here? Definitely tougher in black and white, right? Because especially this one, I'm upping the challenge, the difficulty level here. If you can recognize this, I am wholly impressed and a little bit concerned. I think I've said that before. So we've got some sort of like wispy lines going up this way for you. If you recognize this logo, you get 3 points. But I think for the majority who didn't, let's zoom out a little bit and have a look at the 2-point hint. Okay, so getting a better idea of what we might be looking at here. I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying that those are teeth. So presumably the wispy lines that we were looking at before, are we all thinking whiskers? I'm thinking whiskers. Okay, I'll zoom in, zoom out. See, already said. I'll zoom out one last time so we can have a look at the entire logo, and this hint is worth 1 point. It's a little bit unhinged, but there's something about these like old school unhinged types of animal logos that I actually really love. Like, one of my favorite, I think, soccer badges is the Hull City one, which, yeah, again, just has like a slightly unhinged version of a tiger on it. It's that like old school type of design, right? Like you'll get tattoos like this. And people who know more about tattoos can tell me, is this the art style old school? Let me know. So, I'll tell you the answer now. I hope you guessed something if you weren't sure. This logo belonged to the Detroit Tigers. So they've had a couple versions of an unhinged tiger for their logo. After this one, they had another one that was like a little more front facing, had the big eyes with the pupils. That's another one that I really like, and that is also very reminiscent of Hull City. Let's move on to the third logo. Hint number 1 for 3 points. This is one that is going to be tougher on a lot of people, but very obvious for some. So just some dashes here. Let's zoom out a little bit, and for 2 points, can you recognize this logo? So a lot more dashes. And they sort of converge at the top. I think it's fair to assume that the logo continues upwards. point. Can you recognize this logo? And this is kind of like you either do or you don't. I think it's safe to say at this point I'm trolling a little bit on this one for the early hints, because this and like maybe what I'm about to say is a hint in itself, but this logo is just black. I didn't have to black and white it, because this is the actual color of the logo. So the answer is Juventus. So this is one of their older logos. I debated doing like the badge with the very clear stripes. And now they just have the minimal J logo. But this is Juventus. Let's move on to question 4 for 3 points. What is this? Oh, I thought I'd get away without stomach sounds today. Just had like a plate of IKEA plant-based meatballs. Before this, that's what we are working on this end. But what is this logo? Now that I'm looking at it, I realize there's a huge hint just staring at you for this format of the logo. So I'm not going to give you any longer with it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit for 2 points. What is this logo? And now that I realize what I've done, I think with this image you have all of the elements that you really need, right? So I won't say more than that about it yet, but just take a stab at it. Again, I won't dwell on this one too long, because this is meant to be a challenge. I'm not supposed to go easy on you. So let's go ahead, have a look at the entire logo for 1 point. You can get this. Even if you aren't familiar with this logo, you've got the sport twice, you've got a letter, and you've got a character. There's too many hints here. It's interesting that they went with 2 basketballs in the logo. I feel like the one on the finger did not need to be there. So this logo, as you've probably guessed, is or belonged to the Washington Wizards. Let's go over to logo 5. Hint 1. So we've clearly got some sort of color blocking here. What are we looking at? Oh, don't you just wish you had colors right now? Let's zoom out and give you a little bit more information for 2 points. So, I think it's fair to say at this point that we're kind of looking cityscape. Because if you've been watching these quizzes, you're sort of used to seeing this type of thing before. We've seen it with the Mets, we've seen it with the Nuggets, just having like a skyline be part of the logo. And if you had not caught on to that, you're welcome. So I'm gonna zoom out and give you the look at the full logo. For one point, I did remove the name of the team from this logo. Same with the Wizards, actually. The Wizards had Wizards written underneath it. But what is this? Think about the skyline that you're looking at. Think about the sport element that's showing up in this logo. And that will give you the answer, which is the Seattle Supersonics. And that was question 5. So we're halfway right now. You could have a maximum of 15 points, but you don't. There's no way you do. Let's move on. Go to question 6. Hint number 1. Which retro logo is this? We've got some sort of spiky triangle situation here, which I think we've done enough of these logo quizzes now that you probably at least have an idea of you probably have, hopefully have an idea of what kind of element we're looking at here. I mean, like, in terms of animal, animal, vegetable, mineral. I hope that you've narrowed it down. Let's move on to hint number 2 for 2 points. There's your animal. But whose animal is it? Whose animal is it? I feel like, because I haven't thought of this logo in a little bit, seeing this portion of the logo would lead me to a different city and a different sport. And I wonder if some of you will have the same idea that I would have had. So let's move on to hint number 3. For 1 point, we'll look at the entire logo. So, we've got a hockey stick here. And this is what I mean. I feel like if I'd only seen, to be honest, I don't, if before I looked at this logo now, if you had asked me if there was a bird in this logo, I would have said you're crazy. Of course not. So by hint number 2, I think I would have gone like Baltimore Ravens or something. But it's not the right sport. But I feel like if you know this logo, you know this logo. I mean, if you know about this team, do you know this logo? give you the answer, which is the Atlanta Thrashers, NHL team. But yeah, I remembered, like I fully remembered the the hurricane movement, like the tornado movement. But I did not picture a bird's face in this logo. Let's move on to question 7, hint number 1. And this is one of the deep cuts. So if you get it on this hint, on this image, you get 3 points. I'll say, we often get pixelated images for our first hints because you really have to zoom in. But this one especially is pixelated. This is like an extra little hint. This one is especially pixelated because not a lot of images of it exist, relatively speaking. Even though it's probably the most recent, it has to be the most recent logo on this list, definitely. But doesn't really exist in high res. That's my hint for photo 1. Let's move on to photo 2. Zoom out a little bit. So again, this is a deep cut. And you might have never seen this logo. Even though you might know the team. What I'm trying to say here is that what's happening in this logo is known as a salute. And I'll leave it at that. And I'll stop being cryptic and I'll move on to the final hint. Let's look at the entire logo. This one, I think, helps me that it's in black and white because obviously the colors would help guide you in a direction, but I've blocked out the name of the team from the top of the badge. So this is a deep cut, but like I said, if that image looks like something to you, then you're on to something. You know what I mean? The last thing I'll tell you is that this logo was actually designed or introduced in, I think it was 2018. And about a week after it was unveiled, it was pulled back because there was so much negative feedback from the fans. So the answer is Leeds United. So that's the Leeds salute. And obviously they did not rebrand to this logo, which I think is a really good thing because I prefer the classic look. I think it's really tricky to modernize sports logos in this way, and especially, soccer, football logos that have such a history and that have such a classic look. But anyway, let's move on to question 8. Hint number 1 for 3 points. What is this logo? I should hurry it along a little bit be careful with your answer. Because I'm gonna require a very specific answer. This is not only a say what you see, it's get the right city. You know what I mean? Let's go on to hint number 2 for 2 points, and I cannot reiterate enough. You might have an idea about what you're looking at, but watch out. Watch out. I'm going no mercy on this one. Was the team that you're thinking about in the city that you're thinking about? And no, it's not that one either. Okay. So let's go over to the entire logo for 1 point. Be careful. Which team had this logo? The answer is not the Los Angeles Rams, not the St. Louis Rams. The answer is the Cleveland Rams. Did I get you? Let's move on to question 9, hint number 1. What are we looking at? Let's zoom out a little bit for 2 points. So apparently we're going back into the realm of horror here. With all due respect to this team and their fans, this is terrifying. I love it. I love it. Do you recognize this logo? I'll zoom out a little bit to help those who don't. For 1 point, here's the entire logo. I've just removed the name of the teams. I've removed the name of the team from this anthropomorphized baseballs shirt. So, in black and white, whose logo is this? Well, the answer is the Cincinnati Reds. And the shirt of the logos usually says Red Stockings, I believe. So, let's move on to the final question. Your last chance to get some points here, and it's another deep, deep cut. So have a look at this. You're not going to get any points off of this question, but if by some miracle you do, it is worth 3 points. What are you looking at? You can see it has that much older, and by older I mean not in the last few decades, style of logo that's it's almost like out of a graphic novel or something, like that style of ink drawing that's very sort of splotchy and liney and uses negative space a lot. So let's zoom out a little bit, and I'll be generous with the amount of the logo that I show you here because again, it's a deep cut. You have to know the history of the sport important question to know about this one. So, let's have a final look at the final logo of this quiz for 1 point. The last point up for grabs in this quiz. And in this case, I thought about removing an element like I usually do when I feel it gives away the name of the city or the team. But in this case, I left it in just to try to help you a little bit. Because, okay, here's another hint. This is a team that I think only existed for 2 seasons. But it is a Big Four team. Oh. Perfect time to get to the last hint. So it's a Big Four team that only existed for a couple of seasons. Maximum of 3 seasons, I'd say, but I'm pretty sure it's 2. And I left you a big hint in the picture of a location. But let this be a learning experience for most of you. So the answer is the Kansas City Scouts. And this was a team that existed in the 70s, mid-70s, in the NHL. I don't think I mentioned that part. This was an NHL team in the mid-70s. My channel members have seen this logo before when we were sorting some old hockey cards from the 70s. We had a few Kansas City players. But guys, that is... I'm gonna go sneeze my life away and cough my life away now. Don't you just love spring? That was the Retro Sports Logos quiz on hard mode. I hope you had fun. Let me know in the comments what your final score was, and I'll see you